I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream.
Who was Martin Luther King Jr.? He was an American Christian minister, activist, and political philosopher who was one of the most prominent leaders in the civil rights movement. He wanted to see a world where all lived in harmony, where blacks aren't publicly abused, but can have a picnic with the sons of former slave owners. When most people think of King, they first think of his "I Have a Dream" speech that was spoken to the public in Washington on the 28th of August, 1963. One of his main practices was the nonviolent civil disobedience practice, where he and his followers would march, do sit-ins in white-only places, etc.
Meanwhile, retiring Justice Thurgood Marshall, without reference to anyone, warned the president against using race as an excuse for a bad choice.
And I don't think it should be used as an excuse one way or the other.
An excuse for what, Justice?
Doing wrong.
Did you tell...
I mean, for picking the wrong Negro and said, I'm picking him because he's a Negro. I'm opposed to that. I think the important factor is to pick the best person for the job, not on the basis of race.
Marshall,
Who was Thurgood Marshall? Marshall was an American civil rights lawyer and jurist who served as the first African-American Supreme Court justice from 1967 to 1991. He was also a NAACP lawyer and a U.S. Solicitor General. He argued 32 cases before the Supreme Court, winning 29 of them, and supported racial equality and social justice. Several of his cases were to ban segregation practices. One of the most noticeable wins was Smith v's Allwright case in 1944, which won black people the right to vote in Texas primaries. Another noticeable case was in 1946, Morgan v's Virginia, that banned segregation on interstate passenger carriers.
As it stands now, the voting section of this bill will not help the thousands of black people who want to vote. It will not help the citizens of Mississippi, of Alabama, and Georgia who are qualified to vote but lack a sixth-grade education. One man, one vote is the African cry. It is our too. It must be ours.
John Lewis was an American civil rights leader and politician. He was a co-founder and chairman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC. Lewis led and helped organize many of the seminal moments in the civil rights movement, including the Freedom Rides, the 1963 March on Washington, and the Selma to Montgomery marches. He was elected to Congress in 1986 and received the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2011. He has also written book series called March, which is an autobiographical black and white graphic novel trilogy about the civil rights movement, told through the perspective of civil rights leader and U.S. Congressman John Lewis.
And coupled with the oppression that leads black people and brown people, people of color, into the jails and prisons of this country, has been a new kind of political awareness that has spread all over the jails and prisons throughout the country. When George Jackson, and Fleeta Drumgo, and John Cluchet, and Ruchell McGee, I could go on and on and on to name the sisters and brothers who have achieved a political awareness and a political commitment behind the walls. But you see, once they do this, then they are subjected to all of the terror that the prison system has to offer. Mm-hmm. And so they end up spending years and years and years in prison under the worst of circumstances.
Angela Yvonne Davis is an American Marxist and feminist political activist, philosopher, academic, and author. She is a professor at the University of California, Santa Cruz. Davis was a longtime member of the Communist Party USA and a founding member of the Committees of Correspondence for Democracy and Socialism. She was active in movements such as the Occupy movement and the Boycott, Black Panther Party, the Second Wave Feminist movement, the Anti-Vietnam War movement, and the Divestment and Sanctions campaign.
Don't scare Negroes today with no badge or no white skin or no white sheet or no white anything else. The police the same way. They put their club upside your head and then turn around and accuse you of attacking them. Every case of police brutality against a Negro follows the same pattern. They attack you, bust you all upside your mouth, and then take you to court and charge you with assault. What kind of democracy is that? What kind of freedom is that?
Malcolm X, born Malcolm Little, was an American Muslim minister and human rights activist. He was a prominent figure during the civil rights movement. Malcolm X was a minister, civil rights activist, and prominent black nationalist leader who served as a spokesman for the Nation of Islam during the 1950s and 1960s. He urged his fellow black Americans to protect themselves against white aggression by any means necessary, a stance that often put him at odds with the nonviolent teachings of Martin Luther King Jr.
I asked her then what actually happened to set off this train of history, and this was her answer.
When I got on the bus, the rear was filled with colored passengers, and they were beginning to stand. The seat I occupied was the first of the seats where the Negro passengers take as they on this route. The driver noted that the front of the bus was filled with white passengers, and there would be 2 or 3 men standing. He looked back and asked that the seat where I had taken, along with 3 other persons, one in the seat with me and 2 across the aisle, was seated. He demanded the seat that we were occupying. The other passengers very reluctantly gave up their seats, but I refused to do so.
Rosa Parks, born February 4, 1913 in Tuskegee, Alabama, U.S., and passed away on October 24, 2005 in Detroit, Michigan, was an American civil rights activist. Her courageous act of refusing to give up her seat on a public bus in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955 sparked the Montgomery bus boycott, a pivotal event in the civil rights movement in the United States. Her unwavering stand against racial segregation on buses led to her being hailed as the mother of the civil rights movement.